Just to start off, a word on Mick Dawson. Can you give us a little bit of insight into the impact he's had in Leinster in the time you've been there, and what a loss he'll be to the club now that he is going to be stepping down at the end of the season?
Yeah, no, Mick will be a huge loss. Yeah, he's had an amazing role, really, Mick. Over 20 years as CEO. And I think it's important to understand, like, so there's Leinster, obviously the professional team, but there's the domestic side of the game as well, and trying to grow the game at all levels, really. And it's something he's been able to do incredibly well. And there's so many great values, I guess, from the amateur era before the game went professional. You think the game only went professional in what, 95 globally, probably a little bit later in Ireland, maybe 96, 97. And Mick came in shortly afterwards as CEO in Leinster. So he's had an amazing impact. Obviously for me, I was leaving school around that time, so I was leaving the school in 96 and whatever, coming into the senior team at a little bit later after that. And so he's been there all the way through my career. And he's been an unbelievable support to me personally in the role, particularly from a coaching point of view. So yeah, he'll be a huge loss because he's very much part of the fabric of the place here. But we wish him well the next chapter of his life. But he's been a great character, and just as I said, like, just the real strength is the connection of bringing together, I guess, some of the amateur ethos values, and staying connected to the professional team and be able to grow the professional team as well. So I think he's done a pretty remarkable job over the last 20 years.
Absolutely. To more current events, Jordan Larmour's injury, can you just give me a little bit of insight into the extent of that? So how long you're expecting him to be out for, and who might slot in his absence?
Well, good question. There's some good guys to step in. Jordan's been very unlucky. Even when he came off the weekend, I thought it was more from a precautionary point of view when we made the change. Even I talked to Jordan afterwards. So anyway, he's a little bit of damage that he's sort of in a muscle around his hips. So the exact timeline, it's hard to be that accurate at the moment. So hopefully we'll find out a bit more. Obviously, we're still early days, so we'll see if he settles down this week, and try and get him back as soon as we can. But yeah, he's definitely a loss for us because he's been in some really good form, Jordan. You see even the try he took at the weekend, and looked really, really sharp. So very, very unfortunate for him. But yeah, we're lucky that there's some good guys to step in there instead. So good opportunity for somebody else.
Cheers, Leo.
Thank you.
Hi Leo, Aisling here from Off the Ball. How are you?
Good, thanks, Aisling. Yeah.
Good. Leinster and Ulster now at the weekend. Leinster have a lot of players, I suppose, away at international camp. Ulster don't have as many. It's going to be a tough challenge.
Yeah, you're right there. It's an unusual time of the year, isn't it, for games? We played Benetton at the weekend, and they're missing over 20 players. They're probably the worst affected team at this time of the year. Like Ulster, whatever. I know there were a couple of guys who got back into camp this week, and again, I'm not 100% sure what their involvement will be, but it is what it is. We just got to forge on. We've this group that we've currently, they've worked hard over the last number of weeks, and it's been nice to see guys get some consistent games, and try to make some improvements week on week. So and that's the focus again for us. We know it's going to be a tough challenge up in the Kingspan, and I guess they haven't had as many moving parts, Ulster, so they have that sense of cohesion as a group. And they're well coached team and very well organised. Already you saw in November they caused us plenty of problems, so we know it's going to be a tough battle for us. But yeah, it's exciting as well to look forward to it as well.
And we saw Harry Byrne coming off after, I think it was half an hour with an injury. How was he?
Yeah, so he had a bang in his ribs from the week before, and it was touch and go whether we were going to play him. So he got a knock. He just got hit off the ball at one stage. So we made the decision to pull him pretty early. He could have carried on, but we'll see how he settles down now this week.
Great, Leo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leo, hi, Justin. The game at the RDS, a funny game in some respects. What would you be able to put your finger on in terms of what was different about that Ulster performance that night. They've come to Dublin so many times and have come up short, but there was something a little bit different about them that night.
Yeah, I think they started fast and we were a little bit slow out of the blocks, and did a lot of territory and possession in the first half in particular. There was a bit of a breeze in the RDS that evening, but yeah, obviously both teams were coming off the break in November, and they were first to everything really that day. That was the big thing you would have noticed, I think, watching it. So for the group that we have, again, there's the groups, the way they chop and change during the course of the season, we know, depending on call-ups, etc. So the group that we have now, like as I said, I guess we played the last 4 weeks together, so we're trying to build that sense of cohesion and understanding with this group of players that we have. So it's a massive step up for us this week. You could see in Ulster's performance against Cardiff how clinical they were. The very, very strong kicking game, particularly with their nines. So they play that territory game, put a lot of pressure on the opposition through the kicking aspects. Very accurate in terms of that kicking off nine. Billy Burns at 10. I think he's started every game for them this season. So in terms of how he orchestrates everything behind in terms of their attack, so they're as I said, they're making very good progress as a team. Very dangerous, particularly at home. So we know it's going to be a huge challenge for our guys, but it's good to look forward to that as well.
Are you expecting to get some players back out of Ireland camp? And if so, is it very difficult to prepare a team in the knowledge of not really knowing who you're going to get?
Yeah, there's 35 players in camp, and I think 30 will go to Twickenham. So there's not going to be a huge amount coming back there. So for us, it's just trying to crack on what we have here at the moment, and we'll see where that takes us.
Okay, well at the weekend. Thank
you.
Michael Glenn? Yeah. Hey,
I just might ask one quick one about Ulster, Leo. What have you made of them this season? I think there's been a step up. I think they considered that they have become more consistent this season. What have you seen from your point of view?
I think that's the strong kicking game is a big aspect. They play the game in the right areas, don't play a huge amount in their own half. Strong around set piece. You see them score a lot of tries from their line of drive in particular. So it's a strong aspect of their game. And when they get on top of teams, you saw in the RDS here, whereas they managed to hold on to possession for long periods and just took the sting out of us in many ways. And they're very accurate. They don't. It's not necessarily they're not throwing the ball around loosely, but they're grinding teams down with some of their carries. And then when they spot opportunities, I think that connection obviously with Doak, who's played a lot of games. I know John Cooney's there as well, but Nathan Doak has played probably more games more recently, and Billy Burns, who's played all the games, and they're good at spotting opportunities then as well. And you could see some of the backs that they've had this year have come up with big moments for them as well. Balakoon's, over the last couple of weeks in particular, Lowry when he's played as well, has been a real standout individual for them. So they've plenty of threats now, and it's going to be a really good challenge for our guys, as I said. So we're looking forward to the test of going up there.
Best of luck. Thanks, Leo.
Thank you.
Leo, it's Don here. If success is a system, the Leinster system seems to be winning, apart from a few blips during the Six Nations. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough question. Well, at the moment, it's just about trying to get yourself in position for the big battles ahead, really. So, huge credit to everyone here. They're working away hard to ensure that we're in best possible position for when it comes to the games, the really big games. And you're trying to manage resources, juggle resources, create competition in the group. And guys are pushing each other well. We talked about a lot probably at the start of the season, that internal competition, trying to drive the group overall. And then, hopefully you get a good chunk of guys that get picked and there's an opportunity for other guys to come in. November was quite a tricky period because there wasn't games for us. And then, as we know, over the Christmas period, that was an even trickier period because games were getting pulled with COVID and we had a number of cases that we had to manage. And, it was well documented at the time. So the advantage, I guess, that we have now is that there's games that were cancelled and now were being played in this period. So we've had some consistency of games, which has been good. And it's been good to see lots of guys play and trying to improve week on week, and that's what we're focused on. We've played 4 games, we had 3 at home, we went on the road away against Treviso, now we're against Ulster, and they're in many ways they're the form team, so we know we have our work cut out for us. But again, that's going back to the challenge piece. It's important for our guys to get excited by the challenge because, as I said, I think Ulster have been the form team this season.
And also, there's a lot of one-sided results in the URC recently. Is that due to the Six Nations, or is it something else?
There's definitely an aspect, yeah. Depending on when you get teams, the format. You can see how tight it is at the top, and I think the teams that are in around the top they understand how tight it is around the top. So everyone's trying to push on for those higher seeds, and that's something that you quite often will get as the season goes on. So there's a little bit on the day. So the big thing for us is just trying to make sure we focus on ourselves and try to maximise every single point we can in the games. It was pleasing to see how the guys pushed on last week in terms of, we got 4 tries in the first half, but again, to try and keep that pressure on the second half was pleasing. Thought the energy that the bench brought was good, to get more tries later in the game. The previous week we were stuck on 3 tries for a while, where you don't get the bonus point at the end, and we know that all those points are so important, and the message is still the same. So whatever sort of situation you find yourself in, but it's totally different ball game for us this week, as we know, because I do think Ulster have been the form team this year, and they're probably the most settled of the teams as well.
Good luck in Ravenhill.
Thank you.
Jerry Curry, last question, please.
Yeah, hi Leo. Just 49 points, top of the table. It's a position Leinster are fairly comfortable in. But is there a certain amount of pressure on being top of the table? I know it's better than being bottom of the table. But does it bring any pressure being top of the table?
I think there's pressure wherever you are on the table, because you always want to push on. If you're towards the bottom of the table, you want to get up towards the middle of the table. If you're in the middle of the table, you want to make sure you're getting in the seeds for qualification for Europe, etc., and make the playoffs. The playoff format is different this year, as we know. So 1v8, 2v7, 3v6, 4v5. And you want to try and get the better seedings for those games. So it's just, that's the thing. It's just trying to battle out. There's no trophies won at this time of year, but the points are still hugely valuable, and that's trying to be that's been our focus. So there's depending on this time of year, as we're well aware, the conditions play such a factor. So the type of game that you can play, where you're playing, the opposition, etc. So it's trying to deal with all the factors, and the pressure's always there. But yeah, you got to go about preparing for the game and trying to give the players as much information, I guess relevant information as possible, that's going to serve them well for the weekend, and that's what we're trying to do at the moment. And as I said, the group are working away well. We've had a few players that have been into camp, out of camp, a lot of players that have just stayed in camp as well, so we're trying to keep an eye on what those guys are doing, and as I said, it's trying to get as many points we can during this window. We know it's one of the toughest challenges, playing your interpro game, derby game, against a team, as I said, that have probably been a lot less disrupted than other teams in the league, and they've used that to their advantage so far, Ulster, and they've performed very, very well this year, so we know we're in for a huge challenge.